Hey there, hope you're doing really, really well. We are going to look at, I think, four, maybe five messages today. And um, as I like to mention here, nothing here is medical advice, just me sharing general thoughts and comments that I hope will be helpful to whoever wrote a message or anybody else that is tuning in. So with that said, let us actually jump to, I think let's start with this one. This was an email that came in yesterday, I believe it was 16 hours ago, and this is from Tash. And yeah, let's read it. The title is Please, Please, Please Help Me to Sleep. All caps, multiple exclamation marks. Hey, my name is Tash. I have been on a sleep window of 12 a.m. until 5:30 every day for the past 3 weeks. For those of you who don't know what Tash is talking about here, when we start, treating our insomnia, trying to get better, one of the first things to do is like spending less time in bed. So the sleep window here is from midnight to 5:30 a.m. So Tash is spending 5.5 hours in bed. I've been on this every day for the past 3 weeks. I get out of bed at 5:30 a.m. No problems, no matter what. I'm a morning person, so this is totally fine. I'm finding it easy to go to sleep at 12 a.m. after a few weeks of stimulus control. Stimulus control is, by the way, when you don't sleep, you kind of get out of the bed and go back when you feel sleepy again. I'm finding it easy to go to sleep at 12 midnight after a few weeks of stimulus control now, but I only ever sleep 1 to 2 hours with the exception of 2 nights that were 4 hours of broken sleep. I don't have racing thoughts and feel relaxed, fully submitting to the process as best as one can. I really thought my sleep would have been more consolidated by now. I really feel extremely upset at staying up until 12 a.m. and running on 1 to 2 hours of sleep still with 3 children to care for is tormenting. I feel like nothing can be done for me. Please help. First of all, Tash, thanks so much for reaching out. And there was something I want to kind of start with here. Was I can't really find it, but you have no problem. I hear that you have no problem getting up, and you find it easily to fall asleep at 12, but you only get a few hours of sleep. So, a couple of things here. This message, sorry, reminds me a lot of that was a much longer message, but a message I got from someone named Ellen, where very similar. She was like, she described that she didn't particularly feel sleepy during the day. She slept very, very little, and she also had this, like, she didn't feel particularly stressed or anxious. Like and I'm sorry, I'm looking down here and I'm trying to figure out where it is. Oh yeah, here it is. Episode pod 13 is kind of like one of the last messages from her, where we go over kind of her story, but there's more episode pod something. If you search for like YouTube episode pod, and I believe it's number 3 or something like that. No, it's later. It's, but if you search those episode pod things, you can hear me read the entire message from her, and you will find that there are these similarities. Like Ellen didn't feel stressed, didn't feel anxious. She felt, at her baseline, but just was sleeping very, very little. And how can one explain this? Like, how can one explain that you're spending 5.5 hours in bed and you're sleeping extremely little? Well, there are kind of like 2 explanations. One is that you truly are sleeping, 2 hours, and you're still somehow able to get up at 5:30, no problem. Like, you're somehow functioning an extreme little amount, or that there is some component of what's called paradoxical insomnia here, whereby you are underestimating how much you're sleeping. You may sleep more than you think you're sleeping. Now, whichever that it is doesn't really matter. The point here is that you're sleeping very little, you feel tormented, you have kids to take care of, and so what should you be doing? Well, here's the thing, and this is really, really difficult, but I think it is super important. I could, just from the headline here, like, please, please, please help me sleep. You can tell that this is a message for somebody who's like really in a desperate situation. Like, just feel like you have to get some sleep. I have kids to take care of, and this is tormenting, and I'm doing all this, and I still can't sleep. I have to get some sleep. And here's the thing. that desperation has led you to send this message. It's led to something that I believe is helpful and productive. Like you found my channel, and I hope you'll find a lot of things that are helpful here. But overall, that desperation is also what really, really disrupts sleep and makes progress really, really difficult. Because when you're in kind of that, you really, really want to sleep, like then you're thinking about it, you're hoping for it, you're praying for it, you're bargaining for it, you're thinking about how to get sleep. That whole process so feeds insomnia. So I think really like the best thing to do, it's very hard, but the best thing to do is like really try to shift attention away from sleep. You're doing the sleep window 12 to 5:30 a.m. That's good. It's good to spend a little time in bed when we have trouble sleeping. Other than that, like a really great strategy is like the set it and forget it. Like you decided that I'm not going to go to bed before midnight and I'm going to get up at 5:30. But other than that, shift attention away from sleep as much as possible. Like do anything. Like you have 3 kids to take care of, that's could be, I don't know how old they are. Like with older kids, it's more like intellectually engaging and fun and stimulating. With younger kids, a little harder because they may keep you busy, but your mind is still like thinking about whatever you're thinking about. But so if you have older kids, like try to, leaving the kids, I don't know why I get stuck on the kids there, but the point here is that the more you can do things that are kind of new, that are exciting, that are engaging with people, like that just keeps your mind off how much you want to sleep. That is the key, particularly when you're in that stage where you're like, I have to get some sleep. You have to shift your attention away from that. That is the key here. And final thing here is 3 weeks is, I would say typically when somebody does like a narrow sleep window, like you, Tash, typically the first 2 weeks are really tough, like a lot of yo-yo, like Martin, my good friend and insomnia coach, Martin Reed, he calls the first weeks, he refers to it sometimes as like a nosedive. Things can get really, really tricky before you kind of ascend again. And for most people, I feel like the first 2 weeks are really tricky. Then week 3, things kind of start turning around, but it can take longer. For Ellen, that I mentioned here earlier, it was like week 5 when she started seeing improvement. So hang in there, Tash. Try to shift attention. But I totally believe if you just keep going, you will start seeing improvement. And typically what will happen is that, you mentioned you had 2 like 4-hour nights. You might have a 4.5-hour night. And then you might have like a really poor night again, but then a few days later, you must have another 4.5-hour night or something like that. And hold on to that, like play it up. Be like, okay, I did sleep 4.5 hours that time. It is working. I can do better. I can sleep. And that becomes like the stepping stones towards like really getting past insomnia. So Tash, stay in touch. Hope this is helpful. And any other follow-up questions, please send them to me. All right, so that said, let's shift gears here and go to actually a comment from Prince Ashitaka. And this is a comment on episode 251. And the answer is actually going to be a very short one, but I wanted to elaborate because I think this is such an important question. So let me read this comment from, again, episode 251. Hello, Dr. Erickson. I wanted to ask you your opinion on the long-term consequences of insomnia. I've been dealing with some anxiety-induced insomnia for the past 2 months, and I'm getting over it now. That's great. Very happy to hear that. My primary concern is the effects this period has had on my brain. Do you think once my sleep is back to normal consistently, I will feel 100% again? Yes, absolutely. It's interesting to note that a lot of people start, sleeping better before they feel better during the day. It's very common that people note that, okay, I'm sleeping pretty good now. I'm sleeping like from 11 to 6 pretty consistently. I still feel like really tired, kind of have that brain fog, not focused. That can, for some reason, I don't know exactly why, but it can linger on. I have a feeling it is because like anxiety is kind of that hyperarousal state, like your mind is kind of always racing and like always like very active, and it can take a while for kind of your brain to recover from that. That's probably why. I just thought about that as we're speaking here. But yeah, I would expect you to be 100% recovered, once now that you're sleeping once and when you're sleeping better. And in fact, first time I read this comment, I kind of more skimmed it, and I thought your question was more focused on like the kind of like, can your brain get really damaged with insomnia? And it cannot. To my knowledge, everything I've come across in terms of reading and experience and all that, no, you can't cause any permanent or even temporary damage to your brain or body when it comes to like short sleep or insomnia. So that's the short answer. But I think I really want to talk about it because I think a lot of people are so worried about like permanent brain damage, like with insomnia, and there's no evidence whatsoever for that. So super happy you're sleeping better. That's awesome. Well done. Okay. So we have one more comment here from Chrissy. By the way, Chrissy, thanks so much for all your support. Really appreciate it. And so this is also a comment on episode 251. Let's read it. Last night I was falling asleep watching TV in the living room. Couldn't keep my eyes open, so I went to bed and my mind started working. So I thought maybe watching TV in bed to see if I fall asleep. I like watching documentaries, which are interesting and boring at the same time. I'm still having issues getting up at the same time every morning. It seems whether or not I get up at the same time, I still sleep the same at night. But my sleep is much better in general because of your approach of not putting pressure on myself on my sleep. I'm also weaning myself off Xanax. I take at the time I go lay in bed, falling asleep before it was go lay in bed and falling asleep before it has time to kick in. Right. Interesting. So you're actually falling asleep before the Xanax kicks in. That's a very important observation, because that shows that it truly is your body that is making you fall asleep. So, okay, a couple of things there. Firstly, super happy that you're noticing you're sleeping better. Like there's that trend, and whenever we have that trend, I think generally speaking, when we're seeing improvement, the best thing to do actually is like, don't change anything. Just keep doing exactly what you're doing. You are on the right path. So that's important. But a couple other things. I think watching TV in bed, as I mentioned, actually, I think I talked about that in this episode 251. Is I don't have any problem whatsoever with that, and a lot of people do. I think I personally, we always watch something. Now, but here's the thing. I'm reading here. So I thought maybe watching TV in bed to see if I fall asleep. Now here's the thing: when you're watching TV in your couch, in your sofa in the living room, you have no intention of sleeping. You're watching just because you're enjoying it, and therefore you have a hard time even keeping your eyes open. You're not trying to sleep at all. In fact, you're just trying to enjoy this documentary. And therefore, because you're not putting any effort into sleep, you can't keep your eyes open. Now, you decide, let me go to TV and see if I can fall asleep. It's become a sleep effort now. Now, you're kind of watching a documentary to see if that will make you fall asleep. You're trying to sleep now, and therefore becomes really hard. So it really all boils down to, like, if you're watching TV in bed, you're relaxed, you're just enjoying it, and you have no thought whatsoever on if it'll make you sleep or not, fantastic, and it probably will make you sleep. But if you're doing it kind of like to see if it'll make you fall asleep, completely different story, to be avoided. And you mentioned also, like, I like watching documentaries which are interesting and boring. Like you mentioned boring because I'm thinking that you're thinking that that's probably better because it's not engaging. And it's true. Like I don't think you should watch something that's like super scary, but I think it's better to watch something that is fun and interesting and not boring, because that keeps your mind off sleep and it's more helpful. And you mentioned, like, I still seem to sleep at the same time, whether or not I get up in the morning. Yeah, it can take a while for like kind of circadian rhythms and sleep patterns to change, but still I think it's good to wake up pretty much the same time every morning. But on the other hand, if you had asked me like 6 months ago, I'd probably been like, you should really try to get up earlier every single day. And now I'm thinking more like, if something is working, even if you're not super consistent with it, if you're seeing improvement, just keep going, and you will see more and more improvement. Chrissy, again, thanks so much for all your support, including this comment, and yeah, I'm really grateful for it. And just two more things here. First of all, Scott. Scott sent me a message. He has been tuning into the podcast, and I think I want to mention that it was kind of I sent him an email. I sent you, Scott, an email before, but there was something I want to bring up here. So yeah, Scott said, overall, very super encouraging. I thank you for the encouragement. It was very, he said, thanks for the content and so forth. But also said, one thing that would be great to hear more of on your podcast is success stories from long-term chronic insomnia sufferers. I agree with that 100%. And here's, two things. As I told Scott, check out Martin Reed's podcast. I think if you search for like Insomnia Coach or Martin Reed, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find it, because that's focused on exactly that, like people who have gotten past insomnia, chronic insomnia. But another important point here is, like, when people start getting better, people that are interacting with me on the YouTube channel here or podcast, they typically disappear. Not everyone, but yeah, that's why I'm so happy to have like Pexi and Ellen and Michaela and everybody else who's been sharing. After they're doing well. Brett come to mind now. That's so helpful. So anybody out there who hears this, if it's in 3 months or 6 months or a year or 2 years, and you're sleeping well, please leave a message. Like, tell us how you got better, and that's so helpful. So again, like the little bit of a problem here is that when people start doing better, they typically don't want to think about sleep again, which is completely understandable. That's a good thing. But if you have it in you, like, please share how you get better and share some hope there. That's really, really helpful. And a final note here, yeah, my intention is I want to definitely create, like, quote unquote better quality podcast content where I have these like longer interviews with people that have gotten past insomnia, with experts in the field. And I have this goal of, like, I hope that within a year I'm going to be able to go part-time and focus more on the inside, the YouTube channel, podcast, as well as the app. And then maybe in 2-3 years or something, just completely work on this. And then you'll see better content for sure. Okay, finally, I'm not going to pull that message up. I can remember. It was a message from Jay, who's been contributing a lot in the last few months here, and he said he's been struggling really for many weeks now, and he had I think he had a Seroquel, the medication Seroquel around, and decided to take it, and slept for 9 hours, and was then saying, like, now he was worried about getting hooked on sleep medication. He doesn't want that. Well, two things here. Number one, because Jay had been concerned about this thing called this extremely rare prion disease, which unfortunately is called an insomnia, sporadic fatal insomnia. Well, my understanding is that if you take some medication like Seroquel, and that actually you sleep more after that, that's a surefire sign that it's not sporadic fatal insomnia. So that, I think, is extremely exciting. I hope you share that, Jay. But secondly, for most people that hear this is the important point here, is that when you take a medication and then you sleep a long time, it's very tempting to believe that the medication made you sleep, which it cannot. That's simply impossible. Medications cannot produce sleep. They can make us kind of calmer and let our bodies sleep. So just know that it was your body that made you sleep. It was your sleep drive that made you sleep. And that will build your sleep drive, build your sleep confidence. Just believe in yourself, believe in your own ability to sleep. That's really what produced all that sleep. And that will really help, I believe. So with that said, we shall conclude here, and I will be back, I think, tonight or maybe tomorrow with more. Until then, take it easy. And by the way, Thanks so much for all the comments and emails. Please keep them coming there. They're so helpful. Okay. All right. Have a good rest of your day, and see you soon. Bye-bye.